But the more I think about it, I recognize that I genuinely don't, I don't spend a lot of time reasoning my beliefs out. I don't spend a lot of time reasoning things out. I more just sort of know what's appropriate, and that's how I act in social interactions as well. And when I realized I had that faculty, I felt like I had been
lying, deceitful, evil.
I felt like I had restricted my use of those. I felt like I had always just assumed that I was not a person to, be able to interact well with people or know what's right to do in, whether it be social interactions or, even just how I ought to deal with my own studies and everything like that.
Right.
But
I would certainly say that you're more on the agreeable side of communication.
How would you?
Is comparative to being, non-agreeable. Like I was going to use. It's not when I'm
like big five agreeable.
What's that?
You mean like big five agreeableness, that kind of stuff?
I'm not specifically talking about that, but it's like, like when people talk about Enneagram types, or they talk about eights or things like that, they'll be speaking about somebody who has a less agreeable nature or something like that. Not necessarily that eights have to have a less agreeable nature. It's just when people are talking about like an Enneagram 8 or something like that, or when they're talking about certain MBTI types, like say an ESTP or an ENTP or something like that, they'll describe people as being more willing to step on. I'm trying to think of the right wording. Like
callous.
They'll step on certain social interactions and be willing to make trespasses on how someone else might eventually react to it in service of something else that they're doing. Whereas I haven't seen you particularly
callous.
Sure, callous could be a word. I haven't seen him.
Your camera's lagging for me a little bit.
My camera?
Yeah, it's kind of delayed for me when you speak. Maybe try turning it off and back on. Yeah, I mean, is my camera okay?
Yeah, yours is fine.
I think so.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would say that, like, whether or not, being callous in conversation has anything really to do with. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
well, one thing you were talking about was like taking into account emotional information. Whereas I guess another way I could have framed it is, at least in MBTI circles, people who get typed as higher thinkers, the correlation that seems to be made there is that they're less aware and utilize emotional data less because they're engaging in other things in which those factors become subservient.
I see what you're saying. I would say that, as for social interactions and everything, I mean, I don't know. To me, there are certain things there's certain respect you want to extend in conversation, and I don't know. I feel like a lot of it has to do with the area I'm from too. I grew up in Appalachia, so we're very reluctant people. I mean, we're very sort of, it's more of a respect thing to me than it is just particularly, I don't know, just being reluctant to give your opinion on things,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just for like something like TE, one of the things that my girlfriend has told me is that when we're out in public, that I kind of reproach her for certain things. I reproach her for saying certain things or standing in certain places, and I wasn't aware of that until after she told me. And then now that she told me that, I have a new awareness that I do things like that. but I always do it in mind of another person. Like if I see somebody coming, from a certain angle, I'll move her and tell her, oh, well, watch out. That
Hit her, smack her.
No, but I'll, just sort of, grab her arm and move her out of the way, or kind of just, encourage her that she should, suggest almost that you should move in a certain way. And I mean, it's not as like, it's more just like little subtle things you do when you're out in public to, make everything go right,
Mm-hmm.
And so I interpret that to be a kind of efficiency thing.
So fourth
And
slot, risk
so did
avoidant
she.
FE. Fourth slot, risk avoidant FE.
I don't think so.
I want to call that. I want to call that fourth slot because I do things like that as well, and I'm not fourth slot FE.
I think people who have low FE have a tendency to blow up on certain people. They're very, they're reluctant to give their feelings or on people, and they have a sort of love-hate relationship with the people around them. That's my experience seeing people with FE and being friends with other INTPs. So that would be how I differentiate myself.
I agree your FE is better than most INTPs. I've always made that assertion.
I mean, I think it's TE other than FE. That's my point with that.
It's not TE though, because look.
But you assume that just because somebody can speak appropriately, that means that they have good FE. That's not always.
That's not what I'm saying. It's like it's.
What are you saying?
It's a general awareness to how your shit impacts other people. So having that as a seeking function normally doesn't manifest as quite so much awareness of it. But, TE users aren't concerned about whether you think they're being pushy if they want to get something accomplished, for example. Or if you think they're being humble enough if they're trying to explain to you why you should listen to them or something like that, They aren't concerned with those things at all. They aren't concerned about how they come across. They think that stuff's irrelevant. It annoys them that anybody thinks about that.
About the people think about how they come across?
Yeah. Like, FE users
who does it annoy?
Okay, well look, FE users in general are aware of things like, if I say it this way, I'm going to come across as arrogant. Or, I don't like that guy, he comes across as full of himself. Or something like that. Or, I don't like that guy, he seems sniveling. Or, he seems meh. That's an FE thing. It's like, you're gauging the other person on their projected attitude and stuff like that. They're hierarchy related things, like whether or not how they position themselves in relation to you hierarchically. But if you're not FE, TE doesn't say, oh well, I'm aware of the utility of that, so I'm going to successfully manifest FE. It just doesn't work like that. It's not attending to whether or not they're being perceived as humble or arrogant. It might pick up heuristics along the way, FE heuristics, learning to say certain things that are self-deprecating or something like that. I don't know. But it's not generally paying attention to that kind of thing.
I don't really know. I don't know.
What sort of philosophers are you into, Zach?
I really like the Neo-Platonists. I really like Platonism a lot. That's
Hey, buddy.
Who falls into that category?
Well, Plato first of all, but
New
people
Plato.
like Plotinus, Proclus.
New Plato is one of the biggest.
Yeah, you named them all. You named good. You did good.
Yeah, Mark's into them too. He likes Plotinus.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Who?
Plotinus is very nice.
Plotinus and who else?
Some of the others are Proclus, Iamblichus, Damascus, Hermaeus. They all have very Latinized names, but I don't know. There's a whole constellation of them.
Mm-hmm.
Hermes. I wouldn't.
The
want to
later
be
ones are a little bit
Hermes.
more.
I've never. What's that?
Go on.
I was saying I've never read any of his stuff, but someone was talking about he's not a. Was it a Platonian? I don't know what you called them. Platonists. Is it a? He's not one of them, but I had somebody recommend Husserl to me. I think he was a contemporary of Jung, but him and Jung never really crossed paths, I guess.
Husserl has a lot of similarities with a lot of people consider Plotinus to be a sort of proto-phenomenological thinker for that reason. So there's a lot of similarities.
I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, certainly a lot of it's based on that, but I wouldn't consider him to be phenomenological.
Heavens to Betsy! Who would ever dream of considering that phenomenological? Phenomenological.
But well, I guess the reason for that is because Plotinus has this sort of psychology where sense data comes in, and then this sort of an idea comes out, and sort of a meaning kind of attaches to what you're seeing. In Platonism, that's called perceiving the ideas. But we have a different way of interpreting that stuff in modern day, I suppose. But I guess phenomenology in itself is sort of anachronism. That's why they say proto-phenomenological. It's not really. The Plotinus isn't talking about intentionalities.
What is it about these Neo-Platonists?
You look like Princess Leia.
I do? I'm turning on my camera. I don't feel like I look like Princess Leia. What is it about these Neo-Platonists that appeal to both of you? Why is it that they appeal to you guys? I'd like both.
They're
Mark
correct.
They're correct. Oh,
You want to go first, Mark?
go ahead, Mark. Give us a little bit more of an answer than they're correct.
Well, I got a lot of background noise right now, so I don't know if I can do that at the moment.
All right, fine. Zachary, you go first.
What is it about them that I like? What attracts me to them? I mean, okay, I guess first of all, in the sense that they arrive, I guess it's important to note that they're actually not all in agreement with each other. They're not all congruent. In fact, Iamblichus attacks a guy named Porphyry a lot in his writings. So they're not all congruent in what they believe. But I guess what attracts me to it is, we think of philosophy today as a sort of knocking down of people's epistemological sandcastles, where you have a sort of theory of what is the truth about the world, and then, I got my rock here, and knock it down. But the Neoplatonists didn't believe that philosophy and reasoning could be separated from a life spent, practicing a certain way of life. A lot of them, when they joined, certain schools such as neo-Pythagoreanism, they had to go through very intense ascetic practices. They had to go through, in some cases, grotesque practices. Like, for example, some of the new recruits couldn't speak for over 2 years when they joined. Things that are just very strange, but it showed that they were dedicated to a certain way of life, and they believed that living, thinking philosophically was inseparable from living a philosophical life where you're pursuing after wisdom and pursuing after what's true about the world. That appeals to me a lot. I like that idea that you live as a philosopher and you don't pay your dues to the American Philosophical Association,
Well, I certainly agree with that. That academia is not academia is no all licenses all the time. If you want to really get a proper license for something, first of all, you need to be licensed by all licenses all the time. Now, Zachary, I will let everybody know, you've been humble, you haven't even boasted about it. You are a licensed philosopher. You and host Mark are both licensed philosophers. Not host Mark's also a licensed psychologist. Or a licensed, what is it again, Mark, you were licensed for? I forget.
Let me look up my license real quick. I forgot.
Okay, yeah, he's been licensed already. You're licensed as well. A licensed philosopher. So for all the unlicensed philosophers out there, obviously you can trust this man's opinion about philosophy a lot more because he is a licensed philosopher. So and if you want to get a
I
license,
hate how
talk to all licenses.
I hate how much jargon is in philosophy. I really don't like how much jargon is in it, especially like later philosophy, the new stuff. It's more of like a sort of literary aestheticism than it is, genuine thinking.
Okay, well, you're just
There it is.
manifesting an
Licensed
ontological
practitioner of
bylaw
human
for me.
psychological engagement, assessment, and insolvency.
Well, you guys.
Talking about you don't like all the jargon, about not liking all the jargon, and Hegel's just like, hold my beer.
I mean, be right back.
He's being summoned.
He sure is. By the devil.
It's no way to talk about his lady.
Oh, that was his lady. Sorry.
I don't know.
I thought I
don't know.
smelled brimstone. So that's pretty exciting. Zachary's stopping by chatting. I wish I had gotten the first video's worth of chatting that we had too. That was some good stuff. Some juicy stuff. It does take a lot of hard work. What is your license again? Not his mark?
I posted it. It's there.
So yes.
It's licensed practitioner of human psychological engagement, assessment, and solvency.
That's pretty damn good. Wow. That's a good license. You're pretty impressive guy now, Mark.
That sounds like the sort of shit you get from quadrival.com.
No, this is the sort of thing you get from all licenses all the time, obviously.
I got a question here that's kind of shifting gears. Whatever happened to Basement Overlord? What became of Patrick?
I've seen him make Facebook posts about like philosophical type stuff. That was like months ago. He might be dead, might have turned into a goat. I don't know.
I see. It's hard to reverse when you turn into a goat these days. Like I said, there's a lot of jargon.
You know, it is really a lost art, goat reversal.
It is, and I think about it. A lot of people talk about how with the internet and phones, people have less attention. They don't have time to learn the art of goat reversal. But all that really started.
Go ahead.
All that really started with, prior to that. I mean, you think about you need a community to really practice the art. But even before the internet and phones, you had the airplane, you had automobiles, you had these sort of anti-communitarian modes of communication that really were lethal to those communities. And so you can't really blame the dying of that art on technology. You have to kind of go back in time. It was a mindset that
I knew Zachary was a goat reversal hipster. I knew he was just going to start talking about how you gotta go back to the old fashioned.
It shouldn't have. We should definitely be more oriented. That's actually why I like the Neo-Platonists so much, just because they recognize that the goat was a very venerable
They
animal.
were all goats.
You think that
actually, well, not all of them.
You think the Neo-Platonists are great? You guys should try the Paleo-Platonists. They're even older. Have you tried them, Zachary? Are they Paleo-Platonists?
Yeah, they tried to introduce. They have a lot of strange writings about rocks. I don't know.
Listen. You don't understand the basis of phenomenology until you've gotten into the Cambrian Platonists. I'm telling you right now, like those guys, that they were, like they're as old as it gets.
Really? What about the Precambrian Platonists?
There are no Precambrian Platonists.
Really?
Yeah,
No
you're
Precambrian?
just being silly now. You're just being silly now.
I'm calling you on your bullshit, Eric. There's no Precambrian Platonists. That's just stupid, and everyone knows it.
All right, you got me. They're just Paleo-Platonists.
There needed to be exoskeletons before their works could be preserved and fossilized.
Okay, I
So we don't have them today.
I have a question though. How can Plato be a Neo-Platonist?
Well,
He's
actually,
not.
Neoplatonism is an anachronistic
It's a term that's it's a term that's used later.
It's applied by Protestant theologians to the new school of Platonism that came out of neo-Pythagoreanism. So they actually, the Neoplatonists themselves saw themselves as a hermeneutical school of thought based on Plato's writings.
Well, why do the prostate theologians get to decide everything?
What do those words you said mean? What? It's a heuristic. What do they say? It's a what tribe?
Hermeneutical. So it just means sort of this theory of interpretation. If you read their writings, there's a lot of creative interpretations of Plato's writings, and they saw themselves as a school of thought coming out of Plato and interpreting what he said in his writings and having a sort of tradition out of it. So that's how they saw themselves.
Does creative mean bullshit?
No, because their standard was to look at Plato's writings, and they were very rigorous with their logic. They were absolutely very rigorous.
Well, that's interesting. So, I don't think I really have a
It
good
is interesting.
answer. I don't think I have a good answer to the question why you prefer Platon. Oh yeah, well you said it because it's a lifestyle thing. But surely there are plenty of other philosophies that have that lifestyle component. I mean, what else is there to prefer about it from, say, some alternate philosophical school like, I don't know, empiricism?
Let's see. Well, I don't know. It gets pretty deep at times. I mean, pretty much what they believed was that there were a set of, you think that the Jungian archetypes basically is the idea that there are a finite number of ways that the psyche can manifest itself in aesthetic forms and cultural forms and literary forms. Well, analogous to that, the Neoplatonists believed that there were a finite set of principles, and they were sort of, they sort of project all of reality, and that the goal of knowledge was to understand, reality as a symbol and to rise to an intellectual conception of it. So, a lot of their works talk about the sort of, meditating on symbols and interpreting symbols, and a lot of it was derived from Mediterranean traditions like Egypt and Babylonia, which had very rigorous priestly practices. And most of the Pythagorean tradition in Hellenic Greece was derived from those areas. A lot of people went and studied under them. So they saw themselves not only as an exposition of Plato's writings, but they saw themselves as congruent with all the other priestly traditions around the Mediterranean at the time. And they saw themselves as fulfilling a gap of a sort of universal philosophy for those traditions. That's very fascinating to me. And you can understand a lot of the roots of a lot of modern sort of, occult theories and early psychology, which is, almost indistinguishable from early occultism. And you can understand the roots of that and where they derive their beliefs and where they, derive their practices from, what they were inspired from. Because, of course, we got access to those texts again around the Renaissance. And out of those Renaissance philosophers is where modern psychology and all that became. So I guess that would be the pragmatic value in reading it. But
Okay.
it's
I
all
want
very
to
fascinating.
ask you about the rigor of your priestly duties. Is that what you said? They have rigorous priestly duties?
Yeah, so, I mean, in a nutshell, they believed that, the principles that spawned everything were universal. And for that reason, if you were going to derive those principles from the reality that we're in now, then you had to look at what was most commensurate with objects. Now, some of the few conditions that are most common is, everything is in time and everything's in space. So they believed that through geometry and through observations of rhythmic movements of planets and seasons and things like that, that they could understand, sort of the finite principles that spawn everything that we see. So that was really how all that connected with priestly traditions. The priestly traditions were built on that foundation.
So,
that
but
they
I'm
would
saying,
do
what are
things
the,
in
tell
accordance.
me about your own rigorous priestly traditions. Do you apply rigorous priestly traditionness in your own life?
I started converting to Catholicism, but I didn't personally find it fulfilling. So I decided not to go through with that. But unfortunately, no. I do not feel like I don't feel like there are any living traditions that really match the whole Neo-Platonic worldview. I think all of that's pretty much a relic of the past, but it's nevertheless still fascinating to read about.
Do you think that there's an equivalent sort of rigor that you ought to apply in your own life?
I mean, there are things that you can always apply, just sort of, practically, in the sense that having a sense of beyond, having a sense of a life that transcends the world that we're in, that everything is sort of just change, and there's a world of pure being or something. So that's always just personally practical. But as for I mean, we live in a secular society, right? Like if you go to mass and you take of Christ and the bread and the wine, you come home and you turn on a sports game. And so we live in a society that's it's radically secularized, and it seems to be a disconnect with the sort of Neoplatonic conception of how the world ought to be and how we live now in a way that's irreconcilable, I would say.
What do you think about ethics? How does that link in with this worldview, with your practices, with what you think in general, etc.?
Well, the Neo-Platonists, particularly, I mean, one of the contemporary schools of thought was Stoicism, and obviously that's very popular now. With when you think Stoicism, you think of ethics for the most part, But the Neoplatonists didn't care as much about ethics. They thought that was a way. They thought that that if they acted impurely, it would hinder their ability to understand things intellectually. And so they acted appropriately by they would even avoid eating meat. They would avoid killing. They would really barely eat. Plotinus wouldn't even allow pictures of himself, or sorry, statues. Sorry, this wasn't the modern age, I guess, but he wouldn't allow anybody to make statues of him or paintings or anything like that because he didn't believe that anything human should be imitated, and they believed that they wanted to radically negate sort of everything human and everything cosmic as being a sort of privation of what things ought to be like.
Except for his
So
cock.
that isn't
He'd let people paint his cock, right?
Eric.
Not exactly, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was reading what Mark said in the chat. No, that Mark, that's actually not true at all. The Platonists did not believe that Christ, but Christ was the way to the divine.
It's
in fact,
intellect.
One of the
It's the same thing. It's equivalent to intellect.
in fact, Saint Augustine wrote a refutation of Porphyry, who was the person who put Plotinus's Enneads together, and said that Porphyry had an intuition of what the fatherland was, but he did not have the way. So
the intellect is the same thing.
Yeah, they probably would recognize the same thing. But what's crucial to Christianity is the belief in the death and resurrection of Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's not get into a nitpicky Platonic argument here, but that's absolutely spectacular watching that little cross exchange occur there between host Mark and Zachary, arguing the specs of their.
Well, hey, we're not done yet, guy.
Yeah, Eric.
Okay.
You're your panties in a bunch.
I wanted to ask a question which I cannot even for the life of me remember now. So go right ahead.
He's got Zachary here. He's trying to savor the moment before.
Well, to go back and answer, I guess I kind of avoided your question with ethics by saying what they believed, but personally, what I think, I don't know, I tend to be sort of a virtue ethicist, and so I believe that morality there's really it only develops in the context of practices with communities and the preservation of those practices, the preservation of customs. So that's really what I think personally about ethics. The only way they've influenced me is a sort of reminder that, I don't know, the world is radically contingent, and I shouldn't, I think one of the things that Plotinus writes about, he says that, and keep in mind that Plotinus was a person who was popular for taking care of children. He would take care of people's children. They would leave their children with him. He would raise them. But he wrote in his writings that planning marriages and that taking care of children all served as bait for us. It was illusory. And I think it's always important to keep that in mind, where you sort of act in the world as a sort of Christian maxim. You act in the world, but you're not of the world. And that has always appealed to me, even before I began to read any of the Neo-Platonists.
I mean, acting in the world.
Are you saying that they thought morals were contingent and ethics were contingent?
No, that for them, they thought that ethics, the end goal of ethics, was to attain wisdom. And they would go through, for them, practicing civic virtue and practicing purification and religious virtues. All of those were a way to attain knowledge. And one of the things that they actually write about is that, the soul becomes impure without the virtues, and it's only through the virtues that they're able to see intellectually clearly.
Are you saying that they thought they were tools?
They absolutely did, yes.
I disagree.
I mean,
as to whether
they're objects that exist independently of people.
You may disagree, but that is what they believed.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's totally wrong, dude.
How much have you actually read of the Neo-Platonists?
Oh shit! Mark.
What?
Did you see that? What he just did right there? That was. I take back the whole agreeable thing.
That's what I'm saying with him, man. Like, he's totally getting it wrong. That's fine.
All right then.
Okay. Well, regardless, I'm sure it's probably an interpretive difference. Mark's interpreting objects as meaning something else, but regardless, I don't know the answer to the question. So,
well, it's actually.
Go ahead. What you had to say was less jokey than what I was going to say. So. Okay.
Well,
no. I was going to say they're disagreeing, but they both still poop. At the end of the day, everybody poops. That was it. That was all. That's why I was trying to get him to talk, because I wasn't saying anything useful.
That would be the spheres of necessity. We see, Ken, the Neo-Platonists provide an answer to that. That's impurity. Okay, that's the spheres of necessity you need to escape from. That's
It's not true either. Matter's not evil.
Okay.
They believe it from a certain perspective. The other people, the Plotinus actually believed that, yes, but
no,
later
they didn't.
Platonists.
Plotinus did not believe that at all. In fact, he argued with the Gnostics because they said that, and he said that's stupid.
There's many times in the Enneads where he suggests that matter is the cause of evil.
I disagree.
You disagree, but you're wrong.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm not wrong. You got to read them all in context. You can't just read one thing he said and then say that's what he actually. That's the whole thing. There it is. It's not evil. Matter is not evil. It takes form, and since it accepts form and has the capacity to do so, it's not evil at all. Evil's below matter.
It's pure potency.
No,
it doesn't have.
It's potentiality. It's potentiality. Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what potency means. The reason why it's privative is that it does not have being. It has to receive forms. That's basic Aristotelian.
Yeah, but since it does that, it's not evil. It's not evil since it does that.
It's the cause of evil.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, you're wrong.
Mark, I don't really feel like debating this. You simply,
that's not the case. Matter, evil does not have form, does not have matter, does not have anything like that. It's below matter.
What are you saying?
Evil is a lack of do good. Evil is a privation.
Yes,
it's unmeasured, unformed, shapeless.
Mark, silence for a minute. I just said that was what they said in the writings. That the reason matter is regarded as a cause of evil is because it's
matter itself is not evil, though. You can't say matter is evil.
He just said matter is the cause of evil, not evil itself. Okay, so that's
No,
fine.
it's not even that.
Okay, well, listen. You
Matter
said
doesn't produce anything.
all right, but Mark, you
There's
said
nothing produced.
okay, but Mark, you said evil's below matter. So we all agree that matter's at 5'6", right? What height is evil at?
There is no measurement that evil has.
It's the measureless
It doesn't
one.
have
Huh?
height. It's measureless, yeah.
The measureless blob visited me again. I think it was Satan. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. I couldn't make any measurements of him though, so it was hard to tell. Oh, I almost knocked over the bong.
Let me turn off this TV.
Yeah, please.
What? What did he say?
I said, let me turn off this TV. I said, yes, please.
Oh.
Are you still coaching debate, Eric?
Yeah, right now I'm teaching a couple different places, a couple different new places. I'm gonna have some summer programs. Hopefully, get pretty good attendance. We'll see. And in the fall, I should probably have a big team at Wilshire. I would hope. So.
Are you doing high school students now?
No, I don't want to do high school anyway. I mean, I could. I do a little bit of it, but you know, it's like I can't operate in the same capacity at the high school level as I do at the middle school level. So I did apply for the Immaculate Heart job, which I probably won't get. But one thing that's interesting is, I mean, I might get it, but I won't take it because the commute's going to be too awful. But God, those people are screaming again. Anyhow, you know who graduated from Immaculate Heart?
Who?
Meghan Markle.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. And also Daniel Dosh, who's the best LDer in the country probably in her senior year in high school. Who's the
I
sister of
remember
David Dosh, my
The
former
videos of
debater.
them.
So yeah, things are interesting in debate. Things are getting back rolling again. I kind of let things fall apart here for a bit as I was getting on Kimberly, squeezing on her boobies and such.
Get off of him.
So getting to know Kim. I mean, we've had a really crazy first year. You know, we spent a lot of time together, and we've done a lot of stuff. And
He moved.
I moved. You know, I lived in that house in Temple City for 20 years, and then I moved out here to Kimberly's house in Laverne. And we've been through a lot already, and we've only been together for a little bit over a year. And I would say that we have, in that time period, probably spent more time together actively than most couples do in 4 or 5 years. You know, most couples our age anyway, because we're both working. We have weird schedules. We work from home sometimes and stuff like that. So we've had a lot of opportunity to spend time together, and it's been an interesting year. It's been the most dramatically impactful year of my life, I would say.
Really? Of your life?
Yeah, for sure. It's been. I mean, I've never experienced such an impactful year. You know, it's like I really feel as though I'm a totally different person now than I used to be, and it has to do mostly with being with Kimberly and the way that she and I have impacted each other. Because as duals, and I'm a proponent of duality, at least for alpha quadra. I don't know about other quadras, but as duals, you know, we impact each other in a kind of a weird way that's very mutually refining, I think is the best way to put it. Zachary, there I put it.
Would you say you butt heads a lot?
Yeah. We butt heads a lot.
You would say that?
Yeah. But I don't know how. Kim, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think we butt heads because of our age. I don't put up with shit like normal ISFJs do. And we're both pretty stubborn.
Yeah, we're both pretty stubborn. She's way more stubborn than me, frankly.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty.
Does she usually win for that reason?
Yes.
Yeah, usually. Every once in a while.
Please.
It's good strategy.
Would you stop it right?
Fine. She's a little camera shy. For no reason. I don't know why she's camera shy. She's even, like, dressed up and stuff today, right?
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. You always make a big fuss if you're not dressed up enough.
I see.
How's Faith like? Is she? Do you think she's an ISTJ still?
That's actually been a big debate with us. We don't actually know. I think that she's an ISFP. I think she's an ISFP. She thinks that, you know, when I first met her, she's changed a lot since we've been together, and you know, now she's more, you know, girly and aesthetic and things like that than she used to be. She used to be more focused on school, focused on, you know, doing well with her career, things like that. And she interprets that as, you know, now she pretty much spends more time around me and my family than she does her own. And she thinks that the reason why now she's acting differently and why she's come to herself is that she feels that her family environment was more oriented toward TE stuff, and it sort of restricted her from expressing what she really needed to be. And so she thinks being around my family, being around her own friends more, has helped her open that up, more accepting of that side of her. That's the ISFP side of her.
Well, it's true that people change a lot or evolve a lot over time. It's also true that I think people who are different types have different stages of development. So, and that's not necessarily correlating with age so much as it is with stage of development. I think some of that is having to be exposed to environments that either facilitate and or challenge your default ways in different fashions. You know, like this space here is one that tends to, I think, allow people who want to do so to metacognate successfully about their own habits. You know, it tends towards providing others with what the objective or sort of third-party universal perspective on their own behavior is. And so even if it's wrong, that engagement with them on that topic tends to make people optimize. It's one of the things I think happens to people who stick around here ultimately. And if they don't, then it means they're not interested in optimizing properly because they're going to run into conflict. Somebody who's like non-optimal, non-reasonable, or non-objective about their own optimality.
So what does that have to do with her and her family? You totally took this story to a totally different direction.
I don't know. You're right, Kimberly. I'm sorry. Thank you for policing my FE. Zachary, I apologize. Can you help me link back to your topic
We're
of...
talking about faith, and we're talking about how she has
Well,
changed.
I know. I'm asking Zachary to help me link back. Thank you.
Well,
Do you see this? Do you see that, Zachary?
I guess it's important to remember, though, that, you know, when Faith first came on, I think Metasoap was the one who posted in the comments said that she was an ISFP. There might have been one other person. And later we kind of decided she was an ISTJ by rethinking about it. You know, she kind of came on and talked a little bit more about herself. She was more reluctant the first time around, right? But she thinks that it was just, you know, sort of like how in this environment you see yourself a lot. You know, if you're talking to people here, you're going to see videos of yourself. You're going to see a lot of feedback. It's going to require you to develop an awareness of yourself that you didn't have beforehand. You know, sort of analogous to that with her family is just very oriented on her, you know, having the proper career, the proper, you know, life laid out for her and everything. And she didn't so much feel that she changed types, just that she was forced into a box that she didn't want to be in, kind of, you know.
Well, ISFP would probably follow through on what they know is of value to, or what they know allows them to be most comfortable feelings-wise in the moment. So, in other words, ISFP is a pretty obedient type.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. They're very conflict
Yeah, she would
avoidant.
definitely care about more about her, parents' expectations than her feeling like she's being feminine, being who she wants to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to man this mute button here.
She sounds like a lovely girl.
So what do you think?
Thank you, Kim. She is very lovely.
What do you think the long-term viability of that is?
I think we're gonna get married.
Really? Marrying an ISFP?
Yeah,
Huh? That's a pretty bold decision there, Zachary.
Hey, I live with one all my life. My mother's one, but I've learned how to.
That's
But-
great news.
Thank you. Well, it's not great news yet. I haven't actually proposed or anything, but we've been thinking about it. So
Good.
You've proposed proposing.
yes, I've proposed proposing.
You've pre-proposed. You've proposed.
You might say proto propose.
No, I haven't proposed. I've pre-posed. Right, and then once you actually do propose, then any post-proposal stuff will be neo-proposal.
That'll be neo-proposal, yes. It's more of like a creative elaboration on the original proposal, But
Did you see my proposal to Kimberly?
I did. Faith cried while watching it.
Really? That's great. That's great. I'm glad to know it had emotional impact. That's good to hear.
That's very sweet. She is very lovely.
Well,
Yes, we enjoyed watching it.
all right. This seems like a good spot to stop this video, which I have been recording locally, I hope. Yes. Okay, so
How long have you been recording?
47 minutes. I got the last 47 minutes. I missed that big first chunk, which
Wow.
was better. I'll have to cut that from the raw footage. But this was interesting, too. Hearing you and not-host Mark clawed each other over Neo-Platonism was hilarious.
Well, I would, but my mom's in the room and TV's on. But if you want to talk about it later, we could.
It's difficult to dispute over. It's difficult to dispute over stuff like that because it's not like we can appeal to. We can't appeal to.
I have the books right here by my side.
I do too, actually, but I'm not going to get into all of that.
All right, well, we'll stop it there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. And thank you, Zachary, for making it a very distinct evening.